Good afternoon. I'm Carlton Sharp, pastor of Faith Christian Center Church right here in Beaumont, Texas. And we're here on what's happening in our neighborhood. And today my special guest is the Sheriff of Jefferson County, Sheriff Zena Stevens. Welcome, Sheriff.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here. And these are some different times, so I'm glad that I can be here to share some information.
Hey, listen, what's the difference between Hurricane Harvey, Tropical Storm Imelda, and this coronavirus pandemic?
Well, they're all emergencies. Of course, hurricanes and Imelda were considered, natural disasters. This is not necessarily a natural disaster. This is a pandemic. And so what the measures that we're taking now are set up to try to continue to help keep the community safe and stop this virus from spreading.
You know, it seems like we haven't recovered from Imelda, and now we're into another pandemic.
I know that better than most because I'm still not in my home yet. From Imelda, I got flood damage, and so was hoping to get some floors put down. And so, you're right. We have not gotten over Imelda, but we are a vibrant, resilient community. And just like we got over Harvey and Rita, we will get over this too.
Now, the county judge made a declaration. How does that impact the sheriff's department?
Oh, so many different ways. First of all, people forget that the sheriff's department does not just consist of the law enforcement, the police guys that they see patrolling the community. They also consist of a correctional facility. So within that facility, I have approximately 800 inmates. I also have, close to 400 employees, So the impact, first of all, for police officers throughout the community who make arrests in the attempt of keeping our community safe, and they bring those individuals to our facility. The state has issued mandates on me as a sheriff, and so anybody coming into my correctional facility in an attempt to keep the other inmates safe and also the employees safe, I have to check their temperature and screen them to make sure that they have not been exposed to this virus. And so that takes a lot of manpowers, both from me. It takes a lot of supplies in terms of laser thermometers, masks, things of that nature, because we've got to do that 24 hours a day. When you have a natural disaster or a virus spread like this, we can't shut down the jail and let everybody go. However, some of the things that we've done, to ensure the safe security of our facility and our employees is we've canceled jail visitations for the time being to limit exposure. The attorneys can still visit the inmates there because the criminal justice system still must go forward, but we are checking temperatures in those folks and trying to keep those visits in isolated areas so they're not no more than 10 people in any particular area of the facility.
Now, so yeah, is there any discussion being talked about letting non-violent offenders out?
Yes, we started that last week. As the sheriff and many of the judges, we recognize, the importance of doing that. First of all, because we're not having any jury trials right now, and we're not having any civil jury trials or criminal jury trials. And so that means that some folks that normally would be transported out of our facility or even transported to prisons after sentencing will be spending a little bit longer time in our jail until we figure this out. And so what we've been able to do is people who are in on misdemeanor charges or nonviolent felonies, they still had their bond hearings or their arraignments. The judges have reviewed their cases and set bonds appropriately to allow them to bond out. Also, if they were things like motion to revokes, we've asked police departments not to arrest people or do more of a cite and release where you can write them a citation and they can take care of it later, rather than bringing folks to jail on misdemeanor charges, Class C or small drug charges. Lots of communities already do that anyway. It's totally legal. And so what we've done is just kind of augmented the criminal justice system people who have medical conditions that we can't treat right now, because all hands are on deck from our medical staff in terms of trying to screen and detect if any of our inmates, have been exposed or have this virus, and also our staff. We had 3 show symptoms. We did tests the other day, and they all tested positive for the flu. And so, so it's a constant effort, of cleaning and sanitizing and trying to make sure that we do our part to make sure that our employees don't get exposed, and our inmates, their environment is as sterile as possible.
Now, it seems as if information is changing by the minute these days. I mean, it used to be days, but now it's like hour after hour there's a change. How does that affect you as a sheriff?
I'm a crisis manager, and so I'm accustomed to change, whether it's during a hurricane, if we have a crisis in the community with SWAT call outs. And so for a lot of people that, it's more difficult for others. We are trained, police officers and first responders are trained crisis managers. And so, I expect stuff to try and change quickly and rapidly. And so I'm always trying to think ahead on how this can affect us next, try to make sure that we have the supplies that we need to keep functioning, trying to, forecast whether, we're going to have to feed our employees or feed, how are we going to continue to feed, the inmates if something happens where we can't get, stuff, which has not been the problem. But just always planning those, those things. You just got to be prepared to survive on your own for maybe weeks at a time.
So one of the things that that they're talking about now is social distancing, and so in the declaration that the county judge has given, there's a limit on how many people can be in restaurants and gyms and other places. So how does the sheriff department deal with that?
We're doing the exact same thing, and let me say this: those are guidance from guidelines that we're getting from the state level, from the federal level, and even from the county level. But you should exercise sense. This disease is spread. It's a virus like many other viruses, and so while they're giving us guidance, we should be more restrictive than what they're asking us to do. The whole reason that schools are closed, or they're asking people to keep safe distances and not go to churches, and is so we don't spread this disease. I think people didn't take it seriously in the beginning. When you look at the numbers and how fast it's spreading, it's concerning. And so, err on the side of caution. Stay home. When I hear people say 10 people can't be, no more than 10 people, we started at 50. For me, it's about square footage. I don't want 10 people if, even 10 people around me, if we're in in certain circumstances, depending on the size. And so, use common sense. And I think it's also important about, I have elderly parents. My dad's, 80 something years old, and my mom. And so if you care about folks, whether it's your children, your parents, because I'm seeing updates on the news where individuals who are children or teenagers are contracting the disease as well, or the virus as well. And so let's exercise caution. Let's continue to wash our hands. We're doing that at the jail, at the sheriff's office. I put some of our support staff who don't have to be there all the time on staggered schedules, so they can get their work done and not, be exposed or exposed to other folks, because quite frankly, we don't know who has it and who doesn't right now.
So Sheriff, is it true that if those who don't adhere to the social distancing, say in a restaurant, that the restaurant decides that they're going to just have a big crowd, 100 people in there, that they could be cited for that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And so there are several different ways. Hopefully, people will adhere to the recommendations. There's a 24-hour curfew that was issued by the county judge. So kids are not out of school to be roaming around and hanging out at the malls or hanging out at the parks, okay? I do understand lots of parents work and are unable right now to be home with them. If, we get complaints, law enforcement can write citations, and I think the fine is up to $500. The other thing that can happen for businesses who do not adhere, they can also be cited up to $500, but they can also have a restraining order issued and shut their businesses down. And so we are encouraging right now the standing order for restaurants and bars and not grocery stores for this, but for bars and restaurants is they can do takeout. And so that's an attempt to keep economic flow going through our community. And so I would highly recommend small business owners and restaurants to adhere to that so they don't lose. Everybody's being impacted right now. And so we do not want to shut businesses down, okay? But we need people to adhere for the well-being of our community.
Now, you mentioned curfew, Sheriff. So are you saying that those who are under the age of 18 must have a parent or a guardian with them?
That's correct.
Or
at all times.
Coming from work?
At all times. So if they're 18 years old and they're working, there are some, extenuating circumstances. So if you're working or something, but for the most part, any person under 18 years old has to have a reason to be out without a legal guardian or parent.
Okay. Now, I also seen in the declaration that the county judge talked about price gouging. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, we had a case, and it wasn't in our county, but it was in one of the neighboring counties where someone tried to sell somebody water for $48, or it was just an apparent gouging. And so to prevent this from happening with a lot of things, mask, hand sanitizers, just all the things that people are going to need, whether you're a first responder or just a regular citizen, that's at an effort, to stop people from taking advantage of this situation.
Yeah, and so they could find that information on the Jefferson County webpage and also on the sheriff's webpage, correct?
Yes, we're sharing everything that we get, all the information that we get. Also, if you go to Jefferson County Emergency Management page, there are several links, and you can see a copy of all the orders issued, executive orders issued by the governor's office, all the executive orders issued by the county judge as well.
So how important is it that we get proper information from those who are in authority versus the social media pages?
Well, it's very important. And I want to caution people, don't spread gossip and rumors if you haven't verified it. I'm inundated right now with people, saying that the National Guard is coming to town to take over our city. That's not getting ready to happen. That we are going to all be, locked into our city. That's not going to happen. Again, it is paramount, the right information. Go on all these different websites, listen to the news. Don't spread and fraud. That's not productive, and it ties up, valuable time. For people who are first responders and others who are trying to work through this and ensure the safety and come up with ideas to make sure that people don't have to stay at home, or get, forced to stay in their houses. And so I'm constantly working and trying to find stuff, thermometers and things of that nature to keep my staff and my employees safe. And so, tying up individuals, tying up me to, reassure folks that we're not going to run out of food, and some of those things is counterproductive.
Now, also, not only is there a limitation on visitations to the jailhouse, but also to the nursing homes, correct?
Yes. Again, that, because the victim pool, or the folks that seem to be affected the most by this virus are the elderly, or people, 60 plus years of age. And so at an attempt to not infect them or spread the virus to those folks, most of the nursing homes here have made you. I mean, you can talk on the telephone or FaceTime, but you can't have visits.
Now, since we don't know when this thing is going to end, what would you tell those who are watching today that things that they can do?
Well, don't wait for somebody to tell you the common sense stuff, okay? Because everyone's off. I was passing down on Washington Boulevard on yesterday, and I saw a group of probably 20 people looked to be having a barbecue. That's not smart. While you may enjoy each other and love each other, you really don't know if someone in that party has been exposed or not. And you may not know. Some people are asymptomatic, but then can spread it to someone else. And so I would invite people to keep their hands washed and sanitized. Heed the warnings about being in large crowds. Call and FaceTime your elderly family members and friends, or anyone in your family who might be sick. There was a case that I was watching the news, and there was a case where I think the mother and 4 of her kids were infected and ended up dying. I'm not trying to frighten people, but we need to make sure that we're doing everything possible to keep our loved ones and our community members who may be vulnerable because of medical conditions and because of their ages safe. And that's the reality of it. We don't need to be hanging out at the beach in large groups of people. I'm not saying you can't go to the beach. I'm saying, we are trying our very best right now to contain this virus. That's why people are letting people off from work. That's why the schools are closed, to try to contain the virus. And so this is a partnership within the community. Everyone needs to work at containment.
Hey, Sheriff, you said earlier that all hands on deck. I'm sure that everybody in the Sheriff's Department, hands are on deck.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, Sheriff, in our closing moments, is there anything else you would like to tell those who are watching today?
Yeah, I just want to remind people we are a resilient community. We will get through this, and so do your part as a partner in this community, as a member of this family that we call our community, to make sure that we're doing our very best to keep it safe. We're washing our hands, and we're paying attention to the guidance that we're getting from our county judge, that we're getting from the state level and the federal level. Right now, it's not about partisanship. It's about common sense. It's about making sure that we stay as healthy as we can, because right now it seems like it's raining, it's pouring raining, and we're in a thunderstorm, but the sun will set, and then guess what? It's gonna rise. And so we got to be ready for that time. And the best way to do that is to adhere to all the rules and regulations. Stay out of hair salons and nail shops and
Hold up, Sheriff.
restaurants.
You mean I can't get a haircut?
You can at home. You can at home.
Go ahead, Sheriff.
No, I encourage you to get one at home. I think that people should understand. We want you to be as normal as possible. This is a great time to reconnect with family members who are at your house, your kids, your spouses. It's a great time to find a book to read or catch up on some movies. Do those things at home. Sometimes, I always say, sometimes God finds a way to make you slow down and do what we need to do. And that may be right now. I'm catching up with each other and reconnecting.
Hey, Sheriff, listen, I want to thank you for your service, first of all, and thank you for taking the time out. I know you're busy and have a multitude of things to do and to oversee. So I want to thank you for joining us today on what's happening in our neighborhood.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing us to get this message out to our community members.
Thank you again. Hey, listen, again, I want to thank the sheriff for joining us today. Now, there are some common sense things that we can do. Of course, always, I want to show you these graphics. Wash your hands with soap and water. Listen, if you don't have soap and water, use hand sanitizers. I mean, these are some of the simple things that we could do. Also, cover your coughs and your sneezes, or cough into your sleeves. Again, just simple things that we could do. Thirdly, avoid touching your face. Don't put your hands in your face. Don't cough in your hand and then put your hand in your face. Just some very simple things to do. Next, disinfect those areas that you touch often. Use Clorox wipes, or if you don't have that, go ahead and get some Clorox and some water and wipe things down. And then finally, if you're feeling sick, don't go out. Avoid close contacts with others so that you won't be a spreader of the virus. And listen, I mean, those are some simple things that we can do to protect our community. It will be over soon, but we have to do our part. Hey, again, I want to thank the sheriff for joining us today. And I want to thank you for joining us on what's happening in our neighborhood. And we will see you next time on our broadcast.